Hello everyone and welcome back to yet another wet spot unboxing video. Sorry about the minor delay this time. As I always say, every once in a while life gets in the way of fish keeping, but without further ado, let's see what we got. First off, the yo-yo loach, Botia lohachata. It's a beautiful loach, changes its pattern quite dramatically as it ages. This loach is native to India, where it will reach up to about 6 inches in length, although I have seen older, larger specimens than that. It feels like every day I see a yet older and larger yo-yo loach, but I'd still plan on probably the 6 inches in captivity. Like a lot of other botia loaches, these are carnivores that will also eat darn near everything, you know, maybe a little bit of soft plants here and there, meaty pellets or wafers or sinking foods would be good for them. They're often frequently gotten as well for snail control. I would say they are very good at controlling pest snails. With that said, given their larger size and the fact that more so than other botia loaches, yo-yos can be a little bit more on the feisty side, it is imperative to keep them in decently sized groups, and I would say at least 3, but preferably more than that, just to mitigate some of that feisty tendency, although they tend to do well with other loaches. Alrighty, let's take a look at what we got next, and it is a cichlid, Dicrossus filamentosus, the checkerboard cichlid. It's a nice little dwarf that's found in Colombia and Venezuela, as well as, my understanding is a little bit in Brazil as well, in the wild. Although they're not as popular as some of the other South American dwarf cichlids like Pictus and rams, this is a wonderful little fish. Males will reach about maybe 3 inches in length, tiny bit more so than that, with their nice trailers that they develop on their fins. Females will stay a little smaller. These are little omnivores. They spend a lot of time kind of pecking around, hunting around on the substrate. I haven't found them to be too picky in the aquarium, and if you're not tremendously impressed by these right now, do know that given time, males will get this beautiful coloration and these very nice finnage, especially trailer-wise on the caudal fin. Just takes them some time. They are very nice. They are fairly easy to breed so long as you have very soft water with a very low pH, and they're a lot of fun. Just haven't really had many issues, as well as they seem to be much more amenable to being in large groups than some of the other dwarf cichlids. Just a nice little fish. Alrighty, next up we got another South American cichlid. This is Heros sp. rotkyle, sometimes called the rotkyle or red shoulder severum. These fish in nature, although these are tank raised, would be found in Peru. Like a lot of other Heros species, or I guess varieties here, these do get kind of large, up to about 10 inches in captivity. They're pretty peaceful. Nice omnivores that may eat some fairly soft plants. Some of my severums at home like to eat some duckweed that I'll scoop in and throw at them. But in captivity, they'll take darn near whatever is offered. I just do recommend some plant or vegetable matter in there to really make those colors pop. When they're not in breeding shape, they'll have these beautiful green and red hues with nice striping. They're very large and they're very graceful, so there's a really nice effect there. As well as when they're breeding, they are stunning. Very nice reds and oranges. The eyes will be this wonderful amber that almost glow, and then the rest of the body will be this dark purple, almost black. They're beautiful at any rate whenever they're floating around, but especially then. It's a very nice cichlid. Alright, next up, let's see what we got. It's another South American fish, Panicae sp. L191, frequently called the broken stripe royal pleco or the broken stripe panicae. It's a wonderful fish, native to Colombia in the wild. These, with lots and lots of time and good care, will get very large. They're often popular as kind of a showstopper, in that they'll get up to 20 inches in length if you give them enough food and enough time for them to get there. But they are, as I mentioned, very slow growers. Part of that is going to be for the reason that they, like other panicae, are wood eaters by nature. The understanding is that they most likely have gut flora that will process that wood that they eat, thus giving the fish nutrition and energy. Although in the aquarium, they're normally pretty adaptable. I've found my own royals over time to take bits of, cucumber or squash or sweet potato, algae wafers. I've even had some that really relished shrimp pellets for whatever reason. It just takes them time to get that large size. And like a lot of our other plecos, you just want to make sure the water is very clean, well oxygenated, preferably on the warmer side. But definitely just a really, really attractive, really cool pleco once it starts getting some size. All right, let's see what we got next. And surprise, it's another South American fish. Who could have guessed? This is Nanostomus rubrocaudatus, the purple pencil fish, more popularly called. These guys would come from Peru in nature. These are wild caught. And unlike a lot of their congeners, they are going to be fairly active in aquariums. I've found, kind of like their close relative, much more common cousin, the Beckford's pencilfish. These will get about 2 inches long, with males being a little larger and a little bit more brightly colored with some nice finnage. Females are still very pretty, just not quite as showing. You can see both there in the bag. These are micro predators, so they would take a lot of meatier foods. We haven't really had any issues training them onto prepared foods here in the aquarium, although of course anything that will help brighten that red would always be a good idea to add. I will say that unlike a lot of other pencil fish, these are quite a bit nastier to each other, so make sure not to have too many males and to break up lines of sight. Alright, next up we have, it's something completely different finally, lamprolagus cylindricus. It's a wonderful fish from Lake Tanganyika, found, from my understanding, only from the southeastern part of the lake. This is a great little rock dweller that will reach about 5 inches in captivity, would be a very large adult, very similar to Gelidochromis in many ways in terms of their care. These are carnivores. In the wild, they would eat a lot of invertebrates, like very small crustaceans, or snails, or worms, whatever they're able to kind of come across. They're normally not found too deep in the lake. Like a lot of other Tanganyikans, they do have a lot of personality. I think that's a really big draw, at least in my opinion. And as they develop, they do get some really nice iridescence, really nice blues here, quite a bit of shine. One thing to watch out for is they are tremendously good parents, I would say, to the extreme. They can definitely put a beating on things when they're protecting fry, but fortunately they are fine kept alone in the aquarium. Alright, next up is another Rift Lake fish. This is Nimbochromis polystigma, member of the genus, where everything has kind of that cool camo pattern, very attractive. This species in particular is widespread throughout Lake Malawi, and it's a pretty big predator. In the lake, they tend to hit around 8-10 inches in captivity. I've seen at least a foot. Wouldn't surprise me if they could even get a little bigger given enough time and space. As I mentioned, they are predators. In the wild, they would especially try to predate upon smaller fish, and part of that camouflage pattern is to help aid in that. Interestingly enough, they will also pack hunt in the lake, which is really cool. Don't know how easy that'd be to recreate in a tank, provided you need a lot of space, but still a cool aspect nonetheless. I've always liked Nimbochromis. They can be a little harder to fit in that females at worst will look like that, and males of course get lots of nice yellow and blue. So they're all attractive, and they'd make a really good tank boss for kind of a larger, feistier Malawi setup. They are a bit too rough and tumble for some hap and peacock tanks, and of course they do get large enough that keeping them with small mbuna is a no-no, but still a very neat fish nonetheless with a lot of character. Alright, next up, something yet again completely different. It's a cute little guy. This is Howe baileyii, the hairy pufferfish. It's a wonderful and unfortunately very rare species that comes from the Mekong Basin in Thailand, Laos, and Cambodia. And if you notice there, we have it inside of a little cup inside of our bag. And the reason being is when they're acclimating, when they're adjusting to our tanks, some of the puffers will bite holes in the bags. So we're trying to make it so he doesn't get acclimated a little too quickly. It wouldn't be good for anyone. This is a nice puffer that will reach around 5 to 6 inches in length, although there's reports of some even larger that I would be inclined to believe. Unlike many other puffers that would feed a lot on crustaceans and occasionally need their teeth trimmed, these are ambush predators. They look like rocks. They're pretending to be rocks and have those nice little hairs to pretend to be little bits of algae for small things to graze on, so that way they can sneak up and pounce on them. As a result, they tend to not really need much teeth trimming and definitely wouldn't want to be kept with any other fish. Alright, let's see who we got next. It's my favorite. I'll do that. I'll pick the favorite child. Pictus, sometimes called the Anglicus catfish, sometimes called, as we call them, the Pictus cat. It's a wonderful pim that is found in Colombia, Venezuela, Peru, and Brazil. And interestingly enough, Pictus from certain areas will look a little different. This is a fish that I've seen get as large as 6 inches long, although they're normally a little smaller in aquariums. 4.5 inches, 5 inches would be great. They're carnivores. They can be a little predaceous, so you want to make sure not to put them in with anything too small. They may vacuum up little tetras under cover of darkness. And frankly, there's just so many fun facts for these. They're really prone to getting stuck in nets. Preferably they're kept in schools as large as humanly possible. The Shed Aquarium in Chicago has a lovely display with probably 200 of them. They're very active, they're very beautiful. Just keep them in as large a group as humanly possible. Make sure to take good care of them. Make sure to not get them stuck in anything. And of course, don't keep them with anything small enough to eat, and you can have a wonderful little bottom scavenger that is very gregarious, very pretty, just a really, really cool fish. One of my favorite facts about these is that they've been in the hobby for reasonably forever, and nobody has bred them. Somebody please start. Alright, last but not least, the serpent loach, Serpenticobitis octozona. It's a wonderful little loach, also coincidentally found in the Mekong. This is a nice little fish that's more of a hill stream animal, kind of hill stream adjacent, where they would come in faster flowing waters. They'll hit about 3 inches long, and they tend to scoot, for lack of a better term. It's very fun to watch them scoot. I like these a lot. Very attractive little loaches. Their swimming is nice. They're tremendously peaceful. They're omnivores, so they're normally very easy to feed. It's just a really neat loach that unfortunately you don't see very often. They're preferably kept in as large a group, like many loaches, as you can handle, as you can stomach, although I will say that a huge group of these is a lot of fun to watch. And they're just a neat animal that kind of in lieu of, or in addition to, other loaches in a hill stream setup could be a good fit. I just think they're really cute and they're very fun to watch. Main care requirements are just make sure that, like a lot of fish from fast-flowing areas, that their tank is nice and clean, that their tank has a good level of oxygen, that there's some degree of flow, not too hot, all those good things, but really just a joy to watch and a joy to keep. I've had these several times over the years, and I need to get a group again. I've just always really enjoyed having these. Feel free to check us out at wetspot.tropicalfish.com or follow us on Facebook and Instagram to get links to our most updated stock list that have all our fish available for purchase.